to the Trailblazer Talks podcast. I'm your host, Courtney Hope Wilson. This podcast is designed to encourage and equip you to be a trailblazer right where you are, to help you discover your God-given purpose and bring you talks each week that will inspire you to do what you were made for. Each week, we will walk through different topics to help you grow in your life, career, and leadership. My hope is that you'll become poised for purpose and walk in that daily. I hope each week you'll feel more equipped to be a trailblazer right where you are. So let's get into this week's episode. Hey friends, welcome back to another episode. We are continuing our series talking about overconsumption. And this week I want to talk about some ways that we can overcome our tendency to overspend or spend outside of our budget or feel the need to continually buy things that we don't truly need. This is something that has been a struggle for me, where I have struggled all throughout my 20s with kind of overconsumption or overspending, in the sense that I struggled on and off with credit card debt in my 20s and not really understanding how to budget and things like that. And I'm still not an expert, but I've definitely gotten better at just managing my money and just realizing the way that culture has been influencing me and how I've been affected by that, and taking more of a control stance with it and no longer feeling like I have to keep up or things like that. So that's what I wanted to talk about in today's episode, and help us with some of this conversation to help us feel empowered to make a change and help us just to be more intentional with our consumption and our spending, because really being intentional is something that's like the core value in my life. Being intentional in all areas of my life is something that I really value, and it's really important to me, and I think can really make a difference in our lives. And that's why I really like talking about this with you guys and helping you guys with that as well, because I just really think that discipline and intentionality can be game changers for us if we implement them in our lives. But the thing that's been kind of on my mind, and I've noticed this as a trend actually on social media lately, is this whole de-influencer trend. And basically, we all know that there are influencers, and some people might consider me to be somewhat of an influencer just based on the following that I have on Instagram, but I wouldn't really consider myself to be an influencer in that regard. I post from time to time things that I use at my own house or things that I've bought that have been helpful, but I try to tread lightly with constantly posting things or linking things or things like that, because it does feed that kind of overconsumption in people's lives. And it's even affected me in my own life, where I've seen somebody post those different things on Amazon of top Amazon things you need right now, or you have to have this, or this is a game changer, or blah, blah, blah. And what I've noticed is a lot of these things have empty promises. I've noticed that people are like, oh, if you just get this water bottle, you'll drink more water and you'll hit your water goals. And I've definitely fallen for that in the past. I remember during the pandemic when we were just home all the time, and I've always been really bad at drinking water. And I remember during the pandemic, it became really popular to get those I don't know if it was a gallon or a half a gallon, but it was these huge water bottles, and it had timestamps on the water bottle of drink this much water by this time, and then by the end of the day you'll have drank the whole thing. And I remember that I bought one of those water bottles, and I was so excited about it. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna finally drink my water, all this stuff. And for the first week or so, I was pretty good at it. I would drink a lot of water, and I would kind of follow the water bottle and stuff like that. But after a few weeks went by, I fell out of habit with it, and I hated carrying around such a heavy, big water bottle. I really preferred having my trusty old smaller water bottle. And I also realized that it's hard for me to drink that much water, because I don't drink a lot in general. And so it wasn't super beneficial for me. And I ended up giving it to a friend, because it wasn't something that was useful for my own life. But I was influenced to buy it, and so I spent that money and tried to do it and thought it was going to be a game changer, and it fell on an empty promise. And I think there's so many things like that we see people posting on social media that can make us feel that way, whether it's different cups or water bottles or different cleaning products or different trends that we see. I mean, every other week there's something trending that's supposed to be life-changing or whatever, and we see different things, like a lot of influencers posting on the clean trend of like clean eating or clean products, clean makeup, all these different things that make us feel like we have to go throw out every product we have and change things instantly. Or on the flip side, we have different beauty trends or different things that make us feel like we have to go out and buy this lip plumper lip gloss in order to make our lips look a certain way, or we have to go and get certain clothes to look a certain way or whatever. Or the trend with jeans now, we've been told as millennials that our skinny jeans are no longer in style and they're not trendy anymore. And so that makes us feel like we have to throw out the jeans that we have and go buy these different fitting jeans. And I realized so much over the past few years how I've fallen trapped to that and wanted to buy things to stay in trend and things like that. And there's nothing wrong with doing trends and staying up to date and things like that. I'm not saying that we should just never buy anything. I think what I'm trying to say is that we have to be intentional with why we're buying it and how much of it we're buying and whether or not it truly fits within our budgets. Because that was the problem for me, is that a lot of these things were an instant gratification type of thing and they didn't fit within my budget. I was spending money that I didn't have to try to keep up or be cool or feel like I fit in or to have better habits or have better organization at my house or to fit some health promise that these products came with. And I realized so many of these things came with empty promises. I would get it, I would be excited at first, and then the excitement would wear off and I'd be on to the next thing. And before I knew it, I had this whole pile of stuff I was donating to Goodwill, and it kind of made me sick to my stomach to see how many things I was essentially collecting that I ended up donating to Goodwill. And I felt like I was just flushing my money down the toilet. And it was really validating to see some of these de-influencer trends and talks about overconsumption and overspending, because I felt validated in this cycle that I had felt like I was stuck in. And maybe you're listening to this and you are being enlightened for the first time or feeling this freedom for the first time to kind of recognize some of these spending habits or consumption habits. And thankfully, I no longer have credit card debt, but I still feel those urges sometimes to spend money on things that I just don't need to be spending money on. Even if I have the money for it, I realize that I'm also, I have these big savings goals. I'm saving for a future house. I'm saving for a future wedding. I'm saving for future goals. And I realize that the money I spend right now is taking away from those future things. And I also have goals to be more generous and want to be able to help others with, my finances and things like that. And if I'm constantly just spending all my money right now, I'm not going to have that money to be able to help people with later. And there's a quote that Levi Lusko has said, that he's a pastor in, I think, Montana, that he said that he was talking about a different subject, but I think it really does reign true for like spending and just kind of our time and all this stuff too. But his quote was, "Now yells louder, but later lasts longer." And that's so true, because the current, the present time that we're in, like what we're doing right now, it tends to yell louder. We want to buy something for an emotional validation. We want to buy something to make ourselves feel better in the moment. We want to spend money or do these things or whatever for instant gratification to have this hit of dopamine, but that thing is very short-lived. And then when we look ahead at some of these bigger goals we've kind of spent and dwindled away all of this money that we could have had for later on that could be more helpful. And I've also seen this trend on, I guess, TikTok and on Instagram probably, where it says like, oh, my money will come back, but this experience is right now. And yes, that is true in some ways. Like, yes, like some things are a right now moment. Like some things you can only do in this moment. And if you spend that money on it, like, yes, you can make more money later. But I've also learned that it's hard to make money. Like it's hard to keep money and it's hard to save money. And especially with the current economy and inflation and all these things. So I think we have to have more balance with all of this. We have to have more balance in why we're spending our money and do we really need to spend money on this right now, and understanding that we still need to make wise choices with our money and have, a good savings and have good investments and things like that. So some of the areas that I've noticed that we tend to overspend our money, or not areas necessarily, but reasonings, is a lot of times we'll spend money because of our emotions. Maybe we had a bad day at work, and this was something that I kind of got in a bad habit with during the pandemic. Was there were so many bad things going on in the world, and there still are, but there were so many like hard things and bad things going on in the world, and it was constant bad news one after the other, that it felt like we needed a little treat to like cheer yourself up. And it kind of was like a instant gratification type of thing of, oh, well, let me just buy this thing on Amazon. It'll be delivered to my door. I'm not really seeing any people during this time, hardly. So it's exciting to get something on my doorstep and have that like hit of dopamine, because I'm not going out and having all these experiences. But what I realized is those habits of that emotional spending of I'm having a bad day, let me treat myself, kind of turned into like a long-term habit, unfortunately, where it takes time to break that habit, to realize like, oh, every time I have a bad day or a bad moment, I go buy a coffee, or I go treat myself, or I go buy something at Target, or I, justify my spending because of my emotions instead of trying to actually cope with my emotions. So I think that's one area that we need to look at and tend to, is understanding like what is triggering us to spend money, what is triggering us to overconsume. And then the other area, I kind of mentioned it, is that instant gratification. Like, are we training ourselves to be instantly gratified by everything? And that comes in a lot of different areas, not just spending money. But so often when we see something, we want it, and we want it right then, because that's how we've been trained as a culture and society. We can get something from Amazon in 2 days, or depending on what city you're in, you can get it in a few hours. We can go out and buy something right then instead of having to wait on it, or having to, there's so many more like payment plan type of apps and stuff like that, like Afterpay and whatever, where you can buy the thing now and pay it off in installments. But a lot of that stuff is really unhealthy and not good, because we don't really have the money to be spending on those things. Or if we do have the money, we're not really thinking about our future. We're just being gratified right now, instantly. And that even goes with our food. That goes with just all different areas of our life. We microwave things, and we want food right then, so we go get fast food. We don't feel like cooking and things like that. And it can lead to really unhealthy habits. Or even with our fitness, like if we don't see results right away, we give up on working out. And it really is a detriment to us whenever we don't slow down enough to try to break some of that instant gratifications. We let our flesh rule our lives. We let our emotions rule our lives instead of seeking God and letting things be slowed down. And again, there's nothing wrong with some of these things. I think it's just the balance and the amount that we allow. Like, I use my microwave. I'm not living out in the country old fashioned. And if you do live out in the country, that's great too. But what I'm saying is, like, I still use my microwave. I still use different things to help make my life easier. But I also am trying to implement more practices that help me to slow down. I'm trying to not just buy things on Amazon. I'm trying to do things that are a little bit of a slower practice and ask myself why when I want something instantly, and not allowing myself to have so many things so instantly. And then a third area that I've noticed can really aid our overspending overspending and our overconsumption is comparison. And that's something that's been big for me, is wanting to fit in and wanting to feel like I am like one of the cool kids and things like that. And I realize it often will cause me to overspend or to buy something in order to feel like I fit in. I've done that with shoes. I've done that with clothes. And there's some areas where I'm like, oh, I don't want that because everyone has it. Like, I still have not bought a Stanley cup. One, because I don't like super cold drinks. And so that kind of cup is not useful for me. I don't like Yetis. I don't like Stanley cups because I don't like super cold drinks. I like my drinks not to be that cold because my teeth are sensitive. But two, I also haven't bought a Stanley cup because everyone has one. And so that's one of the things where I'm like, oh, I don't want that because everyone has it. But there's other things like different shoes and things like that where, like, I remember being at the church I used to go to in Cincinnati. Everyone was so stylish and cool, and they had these cool sneakers and things like that. And I did not have those things. And I remember buying some different shoes because I wanted to fit in. I wanted to like be part of the cool club of like, oh yeah, I have a cool sneaker game too. And I really do like the shoes, but I really didn't need to spend that money in that moment just to fit in. And so I think we have to ask ourselves and kind of weigh that against ourselves of, am I buying this out of comparison to make sure that I fit in? And I think we have to constantly assess our triggers for why we're spending money and give ourselves some space to see if we really do need that item or if we're just buying it for these different emotional reasons. And I think by doing that and uncovering our mindset and our triggers, it can help us to find that balance and to lessen the pressure that we feel. And I think that we have to be able to take a step back and really evaluate why we're buying the things we're buying and what that is. And some of the things that I've been trying to do is I've been trying to use up what I actually have in my house instead of buying something just because it's new or cool. Like, I've been trying to use up my makeup before I go and buy more makeup. I've been trying to use my notebooks before I go and buy more notebooks. I've been trying to use up food in my house before buying more of that same food and eating the fresher version. I've been trying to make meals out of what I have instead of buying all new food every week when I still have green beans in the cupboard that I could be eating. And so I think it's things like that we really have to watch our overspending with. And I've even done this with organizational things. I watch these organizational shows and these cleaning shows and I'm like, oh my gosh, I need that cleaning product, or oh my gosh, I need to organize this thing. And I think it's good to organize to an extent, but I also think we have to be careful of thinking that's going to solve so many problems when some of that stuff's really expensive and we may not need it in that moment because we can make do with what we have. So I think, again, it really all goes back to balance. It goes back to understanding some of those different things so that we aren't overspending, we're not over-consuming, and we are budgeting and we're making the most of what we're given so that we aren't feeling the need to over-consume all these different products. And I think overall that can help us with our long-term goals. It can help us as a culture. It can help our mental health if we fight this need to over-consume. Because let me tell you, everyone else is going to want your money. All these companies are vying for your money. They're all marketing and pitching and doing everything they can to get your money. And you need your money the most. And I think if we can have better boundaries with some of these things and we determine what we're going to give our money to, that can help us so much instead of just not thinking it through and just giving our money away at the flip of a hat. We can be more intentional with who's getting our money, why they're getting our money, and how we're spending it so that we are better prepared for the current economy and we are better prepared for the future and our future goals. And we don't feel like we're constantly spending everything that we have in the current. So I hope this is helpful. These are just some things that have been on my heart and my mind, and it's stuff that I'm working through myself currently. I'm currently doing for Lent. I feel like money's been an area that has kind of controlled me for a long time, or that I felt a lot of shame about because of how I spent money or didn't spend money or had debt in the past. And I've had a lot of shame around this mindset with money, and I don't feel like I've had a healthy mindset with it in the past, and God's really been working that out of with me, and I've been trying to trust him more with my money. And so for Lent, that's going on right now, basically it started on February 22nd and it goes through April 6th. I've been doing a spending fast in order to create better money habits and create more trust with God, with my finances, and just really slow down and evaluate these different areas that I'm talking about here. So just know that you're not alone. I hope that this has been enlightening and helpful, and I'd love to continue this conversation in our next episode. But if you guys have any thoughts or feedback, please let me know. You can always reach out to me on Instagram, or you can send me an email at hello@thetrailblazerjournals.com. And as always, I would love for you guys to share this episode if you found it helpful on social media. You can tag me at Court Hope Wilson. And also, if you wouldn't mind, I would love for you to subscribe to the show, to give it a rating and a review. It just helps us to grow and to get found by more people. But thank you guys so much for listening, and I'll see you back here next week.